What's an example of virtue signaling without risk taking?
Like you walk into a hotel and they tell you, well, save the environment, and they're ripping you off by saving on washing your towels, for example. Or someone who stands up and starts delivering, like university officials, oh, this is diversity, this is fairness, this is this is that. That's virtue signaling because they're not taking risks for their statement. But someone who stands up and says, for example, it is not true that the Syrian government is fighting, is fighting Mother Teresa, the Syrian government is fighting headcutters. Someone who goes against monoculture, for example, and reveals things that are not held to be true, but are effectively true. Or take in academia. If you come up with an idea that's not, in the discourse, then automatically in academia, they can really destroy your life by labeling you as a crank. So the having an unpopular position within academia is very rare, and those who do that usually are the big people.
So skin in the game isn't just about incentives. It's about getting the upside without, I guess, exporting the downside to others. But
yes,
I mean, to me, when you look at that, people are like, well, of course, why would I would take the upside and not, why wouldn't I just export the downside? How do you incentivize people to not export?
Well, you don't want to invest. So the whole idea of honors, of honor is you don't do it as for any incentive. And that's fundamental to humans. If you don't have humans like that, you wouldn't have the world. You're helping others not because you're going to be paid back, but you're helping others to help others because they're part of you. You see, this modernity brought this artificial boundary between humans. Like you think that, that your death is the end of the world. No, your death is not the end of the world. The death of you, plus whatever family members you have, plus descendants if you have, plus your pets, plus humanity, plus your tribe, plus humanity, plus, of course, the environment, planet Earth, other living organism on planet Earth. This is the worst case scenario, not just your death. So if you look at it with that perspective, then you have an obligation to protect these things outside of you that have a longer life expectancy than you. And that's my idea of scaling and scalability of skin in the game. My point is, if you're not taking any risk, you're nothing. But people detect that. I wrote early on, I wrote about the Christ, okay? Why is it that Christian theology kept insisting that the Christ was not God? He was man. Not and of course you had a lot of debates. A lot of people died in riots over that, okay? Why is it that the Christ had to be man? Well, think about it, skin in the game. A God who doesn't suffer, you see, doesn't have skin in the game. And the whole idea is to bridge you, create a bridge between you and God with Christ in between. He suffered, you see, and then it invites you to become, that's what we Greek Orthodox call theosis, to come closer to God by doing some actions. Now that idea of skin in the game, the fact that he has skin in the game, is not just unique to Christianity. If you go to a circus, you have acrobats walking on these tight ropes. If they have a parachute and protection and all these things, it wouldn't be as appealing. So I noticed that effectively people's rank depended on how many scars they have. And having scars was a big thing. Although scars would be, considered by economists or modernists a sign of failure. No, scars meant skin in the game. I explained how traditionally in societies, the person who rose, with very few exceptions, and the exceptions are quite telling and quite revealing, the person who rose to the top was the person who took the maximum amount of risk. So I show that only a third of Roman emperors died in their bed. And even then, we don't even know if they didn't die of poisoning. And of course, you have to become an emperor. First of all, to become a consul, you had to have had a military career. And to have a military career, you have to take more risks than soldiers. And you see in England, it's a lord. A lord is simply someone A lord is someone who protects you like a mafia don in return for rank. That's it. So you cannot have rank without risk taking. So that is in traditional societies. In modern society, I discovered there's a class of people, what I call the BS vendors. And this is a rant against BS vendors. And not only they don't understand the world because they have no contact, no skin in the game, so they can't figure out what's going on. But on top of that, they don't take personal risks. So you have a class of people who are cowards in positions of power in bureaucracies and in government and in academia and a lot of places. And I despise these people. And I say it, whenever I see a public figure, I have a trick to figure out if the person is a charlatan or not. What's the trick? The trick is that person taking risks or not for his or her opinion. Every time I open my mouth to reflect anything, like virtue signaling, that does not entail risk taking, has no virtue in it. If you don't take risks, you're nothing. The category of people, 99% of Americans are very well calibrated. You see, you take and you give. You don't take more than you give. That's 99% of the population. Then you have the remaining 1%, these bureaucrats, all these university administrators, these people. Okay, I treat them like the evil of modern society. Those who want to run your lives, the nudge people like Thaler, this guy Cass Sunstein, all these people who are both clueless and evil at the same time. So you have that category of people. They take more than they give. You see, they derive a salary and stuff like that. And then you have a category of people, the saints, who give more than they take, and because they feel that their mission is to do that, like people who die for the sake of a collective. Revolutionaries, saints, Joan of Arc, and people like that. It's just like that's their mission, and that's how they feel that's their sense of honor. There's something about them that makes them derive. In other words, they don't care, but they're selfless, and of course they take risk for the collective, for the improvement of life on Earth. So now these people are very, very rare, and you would expect to see them among people who claim to be revolutionaries. It's not true. You don't find them there. I've discussed that, and effectively even in the Black Swan, when I started discovering the process, there are some things. Humans have life expectancy decreasing with time. See, so if you're 100, you have a couple of years to go in life expectancy. If you're at 0, you have 80 years to go, you see. And if you're at 80, you have 5 years to go. Or no, you have 12 years to go, so or maybe more today. So the life expectancy decreases with age. But for technologies, for a class of things, subjected to some kind of survival pressures, you have the opposite effect. Like technology that's 100 years old has another 100 years to go, but it's statistical. It's not certain. So like life expectancy. You see, you have children dying, yet life expectancy is 80, you see. And the idea came from a restaurant now that went bust between the delivery of the manuscript to the publisher and the day of publication, sometimes in between. And particularly that is very interesting because the publisher is like within 2 blocks of my publisher. And usually when I go there, I walk by Lindy. That's where actors used to meet, and they discovered that Broadway shows that had 500 days under the belt had at least 500 days more to go. So they would pick shows that had a longer track record. Now, how does it link to skin in the game? Without skin in the game, you don't get Lindy. And it's also very important. It tells you how time judges things. See, so that people fail to realize that the only expert around is time. People think that the expert should be, someone who went to Harvard. No, the expert is time.
It's pretty much impossible to have a coherent ethical code that everyone is on board with after a certain point. The group gets too large.
Exactly. Think about it. You can't say you're discriminating against strangers because you don't have your door open for Thanksgiving.
Right.
You want to limit it to your family. So I use the concept that the Jewish ethics is called thick blood versus thin blood. You're obligated to be ethical towards everyone, but you got to be some are more equal than others to you in that sense. So for example, if you see children drowning, it's probably your obligation is in that sense, to save your kids, provided, of course, you're not endangering others. Save your kids first. Now, you wonder, why would that be so? Because the other parents also have to save their kids first. Courage is about taking risks for something bigger than you, like saving kids from drowning. You see, that is, you have a transfer of risk from you to the collective. That's in the positive, not like Bob Rubin train in a negative direction.